This is we're starting already. We're fast snaking. I'm hoping that this actually sounds decent. I don't know. I was testing levels earlier and it was kind of not good. So this is kind of not probably the best way to do. I can probably bring this one up. That one's probably okay to bring up. Just a little bit more. And a little bit more this way. But this, I don't even know. I'm probably not going to be doing too much of this right now. But. Bow! Stop fighting! Whoa! Are we actually streaming right now? How's the stream? Oh, the stream is actually working. Okay, good. Because I'm not actually going to be doing a lot of drumming in the stream, so we'll probably just go whoop, whoop, and we'll just go dun face reveal. Am I in complete view? I am in complete view. All right, that's fine. Really fucking fast snake. I've had a lot of ideas over the years. One of those ideas was to have essentially like a radio show. I tried it out. Radio Free SGE kind of worked for a little bit. Like I did it for one session and realized like, oh, this is not going to work because of legal reasons. Like all of these videos are just going to get taken down. And yeah, so that's kind of how it goes with that. But I still like the idea of like really curating the stuff that you're doing. Turn up the volume here. Get a little bit better sound out of this. Really curating it. Really like getting it all set up so that people kind of like can just settle down and like listen to a bunch of stuff all in one sitting instead of, the typical scrounging. The typical trying to figure out what you're going to do or watch and then be tricked into realizing that you're watching the same video that came out like a week ago. Uh, but anyways, we will start out with some topics of the day, which is mostly just trying to get rid of the clutter over on yonder side over here, and trying to figure out what to do next, and also looking into kind of diversifying the studio space into much better, usable things. We're here in Mopey Studios, in sunny here. It's too sunny right now. I actually can move the camera over a little bit, so that's not so bad. And let's start out with some heavy topics. Heavy topics. So yeah, I know I'm trying to clean out a lot of space and make things usable. I've got way too many symbols and things just like lying around. I haven't been like working or moving or doing anything, other than occasionally practicing drums in here. I've been working a lot, so I haven't had too much time. But I wanted to do a little bit of something that I've wanted to do for a long time here. So let's go ahead and I'll pull up the window capture for this. And I'll go over here. So one of the things that I usually do probably every single day is I go on Goodwill Finds and try to find like anything that I think is worth the value, considering the fact that sometimes things that are used that are like completely weird and unusual do pop up on Goodwill Finds. Usually you want to go by new arrivals. If you were trying to, let's say, like start a crappy studio, this would probably be your best bet for trying to find stuff online, especially if you lived like in the middle of nowhere but you were still in a state that had service that's close enough to you. Then the shipping costs wouldn't be too much. It would be pretty decent. I get stuff from Southern California and Colorado mostly, although the cheapest stuff I find to be from Wisconsin. They usually do, and sometimes. So I got a bunch of percussion equipment. I wanted to share some of that too, but so I got a bunch of percussion stuff for $75 because they gave free shipping, and where is it? I filled up like two drawers, 2.5 drawers. I got a bunch of other drums out here too. We got drums at work still. What am I looking for? Oh yeah, it's right here. Or you could do this. Yeah, I don't know. So I got a bunch of stuff like this for like pretty cheap, and like you'd have to, I don't know. This is kind of like the only reason why I have this is because of that. But there you go. Bunch of cowbells. The gourd. Oh, the gourd is good. I love the gourd. You know, you actually play this. It's probably horrible sounding. You actually play this like this. Yeah. What just went doo-doo on my ass? I don't know. Am I still streaming? Did I lose connection? Oh, I'm like way behind on the stream though for me personally. I have to bring it up further. Okay, there we go. Yeah. It's all good. It's all good. Anyways, I'm like in the stream thing, like showing people my homepage and shit. Just trying to distract people. That's so fucking loud. It's like clipping. This is also hella cool. So if you're trying to do like some glam rock shit, you got it. Yeah. All of that shit. So I usually go by newest arrivals and I just like sort through them and try to see like all the good things. Like here, there's a Line 6 Spider for 15 watt amplifier, which is one of the worst amplifiers ever made because the speaker driver is really. I'll just give a little like brief tidbit about every single piece of gear on here. The speaker drivers that they put in these things were so bad. Like their frequency response was like all super muddy, and then like I think they did it to make it louder. Didn't really help. But I guess it's just because like insane mode, you know. Dean hybrid guitar, EABC. That's a bass. That's an acoustic bass. Which acoustic basses are always like more than likely made in China and not. Let me see. Hold on. There's a sticker on the back of that. Oh, you can't zoom in on that. I'm assuming that sticker says made in China. I'm not going to look into it. Casio CTK 4200. I don't actually know anything about this series of Casio. I do know that around this time, this was probably mid 2000s, they were doing a lot of PCM samples that were kind of lo-fi and sound kind of nice actually, and when you use like a proper preamp and everything. So if you were a music producer kind of guy and you were trying to find a cheapo keyboard that has some pretty basic features that can give you, you know, at least sustain pedal and maybe either some stupid teaching stuff that's built in there, but like there might be some decent sounds that are in there that are kind of romplery and fun. You got a Casio CTK 411. Now this is a children's keyboard for sure. Again, PCM sampling, probably not the nicest, and in fact a lot of the times on these cheaper keyboards they put a lot of really weird chorus and reverb effects on it to make it sound pleasant. And I would stay away from this sort of thing just because, oh look, there's MIDI though, so never mind. You may, I mean, if you're looking for a cheap MIDI controller, we've got worse options, $40, and you've got some funny sounding samples. So Epiphone, special SG model, we got tons of those on the market. Love those though, they're fun. A good punk rock machine. If you're like really into like starting out and doing punk rock kind of stuff, this would probably be your best bet for a guitar, just because of what does that say? Something inspected. I think it's made in China. I don't know. Can't tell. Gig bag. Looks like it has Kluson tuners. No, they're like fake ones, I think. Yeah, they're like fake ones, but I mean, that's like, you could do worse. J-Bass. This is good, actually. I can't believe this is like not bought yet. Southern California too. Like this would be like your good starter bass if you were like just starting to get ready for it. Looks like it's just, yeah, J-Bass, Squier Affinity series. These are always good. They're pretty solid built, and you know, to be honest, like they don't have much of a difference with the Fender, other than like, you know, the material might be a little bit better on the Fender. But this is like one of the ones that, you know, I've had friends that have played this kind of Squier and like they don't sound bad, they sound good. There might just be like a little bit of issues with sustain, but it's a bass, you know. Fender FA series, this was interesting to me because FA series is not common, and that headstock is not common, and and I'm guessing it's a like a student model thing. But this looks like an actually decent guitar. Also, Southern California, $65. If you're out in Southern California, if you're in California and you're willing to spend like the $10 for shipping, like there you go. It's a pretty decent acoustic guitar. Yamaha bass. These are always interesting. So I don't actually know too much about this series of Yamaha bass, but this is like looking like early 90s, maybe late 80s, but probably early 90s, maybe mid 90s. And soap bar pickups. This would be pretty decent as a like, I'm a bass player starting to play bass guy bass. It's very like functional. Like these Yamaha basses usually are pretty good. They usually also have they're pretty tunable. Like you have any problems with them, you can fix them pretty easily. Super long scale length, and body style is basically like a rip off Rickenbacker, so I approve of that. That looks like a Squire, just like 40. I'm not even gonna click on that. Like, you know what that is. These are also things I'm not gonna click on. Like I don't give a fuck about accordions. Or this is an Avid Studio keyboard. So this is actually interesting. Avid Studio keyboard was like one of the first like commercially available MIDI controllers, specifically advertised for Avid software. So it's like, hey, you have an Avid board, so get an Avid MIDI controller. But like people really like, you could have a Yamaha keyboard and like you just connect it with MIDI and it would do the same thing. So it was really like I guess it's more of like a software chaining thing. Like maybe there were some built-in software things that were on the disc, but you know how it goes. Skipping over that. Hard key. This is a bass amp. Funny little bass amp. Unbranded electric guitar. I'm just going back to that. I gotta separate this into that section over here. Over here, unbranded electric guitar, and Silvertone black electric guitar, or no, acoustic guitar. Sorry. Again, like Rhythm Tech. These some just like crappy tambourines. Kona. So Kona's actually not. I've heard Kona's not the worst brand in the world. This is the thing I'm kind of confused about, because it's like Fort Worth, Texas, USA, made in China. It's like, is there some sort of like neck breakage or something that's like making it so cheap? Because I get that it's a Chinese made guitar, but it's like that doesn't essentially mean what you think it means. But like I'm not gonna like argue against it. Look, there's some more stuff in here that people are like, this is garbage. Flutes, Mackie control. Yeah, it's like, okay, so sold as is, no power supply. Trumpet, MIDI, another MIDI controller that I have no idea about. Look at this freaking piccolo snare. This is crazy. Look at this like little guy. I used to have a piccolo snare like this, but someone drilled holes into it, like all the way around, and it was a steel snare, and this is a wood piccolo snare. It's kind of weird. I have not seen one of those. Usually they're made of metal, so unless I'm being bamboozled by this picture, unless this is a different snare drum. That looks like wood. I mean, I'm guessing that's not super uncommon, but like, I mean, usually piccolo snares are not made of metal. Oh boy. Kids DeRosa electric guitar for more money than actual guitars, which is funny. Oh, this is good. Yeah, Casio Tone CT. I have a CT 600 behind me, which is good. It's just that every time people buy these, they don't realize that they're usually Japanese voltage and also probably filled with dust and smell like garbage when you turn them on. They sound good though. They have a really, really good sounding analog drum machine that's reminiscent of like any Casio keyboard of the day, except way more like lush and analog sounding. It's the same It's the same rhythms. Like every single Casio rhythm's in there. YPG 535 electric piano for $225. That's still too much money for that, but you know, there was a time when those were worth a lot of money, which is weird. Got some flutes. What is? Wait, nope. I don't know what that is. Cello bows with Yamaha brand. Oh, they're cases for cello bows. That's interesting and expensive, surprisingly. Clarinet. Kangaroo didgeridoo. Musical stick. Novation, a MIDI keyboard sold untested. This is another MIDI controller. And cheapo MIDI controllers are crazy. Unicorn bowed like freaking money trap. Kiss book, yeah, okay, Kiss books. We got song books for Kiss songs. You don't get to see what it looks like inside though. So someone could have pooped in it. And you don't know. You wouldn't know. Same thing for this. It's like you don't know what the picture. You don't know if like pages are missing. That is kind of cool though to be like, okay, well, like what's the music for a Kiss song look like? Not very complicated as it turns out. Okay, it's just like bass do 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 do. Dun, 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 like it's like, all right. Dude, the MIDI interface, it's like okay. Calling it audiophile is pretty funny to me. They're on the back, right? Okay, yeah. Tascam 424. I'm not clicking on that. I'm not clicking on that, bro. You know what that is. That's a freaking money trap. That shit won't work. That shit won't work. It's not gonna fucking work, bro. Nah, it won't. That won't work. It's not gonna work. It's gonna be broken. As soon as you see that, it's gonna be broken. Epiphone. Yeah, these ukuleles are all over the fucking place. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, so is that an arched back? Or is it just really gross? I can't tell. I think it's just really gross on the back. They just wiped it and they just left it like that. Oh, this is fun. Yeah, we got I saw this earlier, yeah. We got the Miracle. $200 though. They want $200 for this thing, but it's like, this is actually really cool. This is an NES music training device where you basically like plug is this that Super Nintendo one? Oh, it's a Super Nintendo one. That's even crazier. So it's a Super Nintendo. The other thing about this is I think there's like built-in sounds for it, and then like there's some way to control the chipset in the NES, but I don't know. Because the SNES version I've never actually seen, so this is kind of interesting. I don't have an SNES, so I wouldn't be able to use that anyways. Nano Control. It's $200 for an Epiphone Les Paul Jr. Like, I've skipped over all this stuff because it's not really relevant. These are always cool. Like, sometimes they have really cool ones in there, and I get them for like Christmas gifts and stuff. They're good. Skipping over stuff like Ibanez Geo. Like, honestly, if you were just like gonna start playing guitar at all, I'd just buy one of these and like like an audio interface, because like you could do like 90% of like all music with this. Like most rock, jazz, pop, like pretty much anything. Like if you really wanted to, like clean tone, this and like a rolling cube, and you'd like be jamming just like people did in the 90s. Yeah, no, really, like it's something like this is actually, because it's tunable, and also like the style bridge is like really like easy to like freaking maneuver, and like it's actually really nice. This is the nicer Geo. So yeah, a good budget guitar, and honestly, like one of the few that's like not horrible sounding. Like they don't sound amazing, but they're like just basic ass humbucker guitars, super stratty style humbucker guitars. Acoustic amp, no interest. Again, Luna. It's like a lot of these pop up all the time. Sonic Maximizer. Ooh, Casio CTK 551 E piano. That I will click on just because I want to see if it has MIDI, but they will not show us. Looks like we'll never find out. Probably does have MIDI. It does have MIDI. Good. I don't know if it has USB MIDI or if it has whatever, but it has MIDI, so it's good. It looks like it. We got regular ass MIDI. Yeah, we're good. All right. So this would be $50 if you're in the Colorado. If you're in a state near Colorado, like you'd be fine with something like this. You just gotta clean some keys off probably, and you'd be fine like learning how to play basic stuff, or like just using it as a MIDI controller to make basic music. More acoustics, Firebrand, I don't know, Fender, it's fine. CT 638. That I don't see any outputs on. That's kind of interesting. Rogers xylophone. Like xylophones and stuff like that pop up so often. Because people play them in high school and they're like, how the fuck why would I need this later in my life? They sell it and they get rid of it and it goes to Goodwill and it stays there forever. Vesta PMX mixing console. Yeah, these things are cool. I like these things. Like I like these things for a couple of reasons. So one is that if you have a rack and you want to do like super basic rack mixing stuff, just like everything's in a rack. If let's say you have like a tape recording setup and you do like everything onto it like a rack tape machine, then like these are like super useful for just basically mixing all your inputs so that you could just bring your whole rig over and then do your band. But the one thing that kind of sucks is this is probably stereo out, so it's like, yeah. Well, no, it sends and receives, which is cool. Yeah. Line outs and record outs, but these are who knows. I don't need to spend that much money. Here's Balalaika. Good three-stringed instrument, Soviet instrument. Soviet. I've had 4 views somehow. It's interesting. As I've tried to play one once, and I just don't get it because you have to do this thing with your. Where's my camera? It's like in front of my face, right? You have to do this thing where you're like, that looks horrible. But I don't really like. I'm more of a like thumb behind the neck kind of guy. We got some more stuff. The Rogue mandolin. More Rogues. I think these used to be like as a set. Like Musician's Friend used to sell them as like a set. Like stupid deal of the day. You got the guitar and you also got the mandolin, and this was like in 2008. And the AM/FM tuner is like a fucking crazy looking AM/FM tuner. Better fucking broadcast streams to like Venus. 14-inch crash. Look, so this is really interesting. So yeah, no, if you're looking for budget, that's where you want to look. In fact, I'm probably gonna, after I get to the bottom of this page, I'll just switch over to drums so that we can take a look at that stuff, and then we'll move on. Squire by Fender, another Geo Mark II, which is, this one's also nice. So if people, $69. If I didn't find that Squire, I bought a Squire last night drunkenly. I may have ended up buying these. Oh, this is all damaged, but like these are cool as fuck. Like they're built really well, and they're cool as fuck, and they play really well, and they like don't sound too bad. Like you could throw better pickups in them, and they'd sound decent. They just have kind of light bodies, from what I recall, and they're which is nice for playing. Like who gives a crap? But like, there's elements to sound. have to skip over some stuff here. Like we really don't need to talk about noise canceling headphones, or like this is a Japanese copy guitar from the 70s, which is, you know, cool, but like at the same time you kind of are, and maybe a Korean or Italian, doesn't say. I'm guessing Japanese. All right, we're at the bottom. So yeah, the Dean Vendetta, like with the freaking Black Flag sticker on it. That's good. What does this say? Feed the Beavers. FTB. And there's a Black Flag sticker. I don't know. We'll go back anyways. We'll go to categories. Go to drums and percussion. We're actually low on drums and percussion. A lot of people buying drums and percussion probably. For some reason. High to low is always fun. So, oh look, 10% off on the PS3, PST3 cymbal set, which that's a lot of cymbals, by the way, for that price. Like that's not too bad, but like, yeah, secondhand vinyl HCS, which are the worst sounding cymbals of all time in a pack, except for the Performance cymbals that are made in Canada. Those are those are the ones that I played when I was a kid. They sounded insane. They're brass. They sounded insane. They have no crash. It's just ping and wash. And the hi-hat sounded like white noise. We get drum pads, always Simmons electric drum pads. This is a whole drum set, but no. Does it come with the? No, it doesn't. No rack for you. Roland TD KP4. No rack. This was interesting. The PDP. This is a nice little snare drum, 12.5 inch. I don't know what 12.5 inch means. Probably 13. 13 inch or 12 inch. Probably 12 inch. If I were to guess, actually. It's a 12 inch snare drum. Little side snare. $90. Not bad. Not bad. I don't know what Universal Music Company is. I don't know. And then the quad, this is always like, okay, if people want to talk about, I have one of these. I've been trying to replace the bottom head, but I can't find one. I've almost bought this just for this, because this snare drum doesn't have tunable heads. These are pre-tuned heads. Remo makes pre-tuned heads, mostly for marching snares. But back in the 80s, they were obsessed with the idea of trying to convert drummers into a system of buying pre-tuned heads for their drums. So you would just buy shells, and then you would attach the pre-tuned heads onto the shells. And this would do two things. Number one, it meant that the structural integrity of the shell didn't matter as much. You could make the shell out of a super lightweight material and essentially carry a drum set on your back, like a huge drum set on your back, because all of the shells would essentially weigh up to the same as like one bass drum. And this was their Quadura series. And this is why people always talk about how shit their stuff was. Everything. It's not like that. It's a concept thing that they did. And the end results were actually really good. These snare drums sound really good. They sound like marching snares, or they sound like orchestral snares. They don't really sound all that much like a rock snare drum. You can't tune them super low to get that thud, but they still sound really decent. And what Remo kind of screwed up on was, if you broke the bottom head, you were fucked. Like, you had to buy a whole nother bottom head. The thing that screwed them over the most with this is that they could never, like, I bought these heads. They cannot, for the life of them, get them to be the same size as the drum, is what I'm finding out. I believe that they just had problems with getting the drum heads to actually match the drums that people were making. And because you couldn't tension it the way, like, 'cause drum's not perfectly circular, you get where I'm going at. So like, so what ends up happening is like, well, they keep making them. They keep making them for other drums like later on, but those drums don't match up to the old ones, and the old ones don't match up with the new ones. And so if you break a head, the new heads don't match up with them. So those drummers who had those heads were just like, shit out of luck. These drums are fucking useless, and they threw them away. And that's what happened with a lot of these. And so you don't see them all that often, although you do see them every now and then, especially this version of the snare drum, because it was probably a student model. But like they had full drum sets of these things. They sounded really good. The bass drums didn't sound too good, but the bass drums, I believe, were not fully pre-tuned. They were like, the front head was a pre-tuned head, and the back head had some sort of way of doing it. But again, I don't know. It's been a while since I looked into that stuff. Like, we got the same stuff as before, some old drum set sticks too with that. Let's see, some pearl drums, good old floor tom, and just a rack tom, little tiny rack tom, some jazz stuff. I already have so many drums, I don't need that. Cool Doombeck and djembes, but I have no use for that either. A Ludwig brand Atlas standard model metal snare stand with Ludwig Pro Logic practice pad. That's actually not a bad deal for that, because that's a super high quality stand. And this kind of practice pad, I don't know if people like these or not, but like, I'm not a huge fan of the big, huge practice pads like this. I also am definitely not a fan of the Ludwig logo being a cutout in the pad. But to each his own. I use one of these fucking things. One of these things from, freaking 60s, 50s, I don't know. I use one of those, and I'm fine. Continuing on, so many tongue drums. Dude, tongue drums are like probably the most common thing I see on the percussion section. I see like tongue drums, and I see these xylophones all the time. Why are these expression pedals in here? I don't know why they're in here. It's another Pencrest, basically pearl, and a Wuhan China symbol for $45. I'm waiting for that to go on sale. Honestly, if it goes on sale, I'll buy it. Why not? It's $45. Like, if it goes on sale for like $30, I'll buy it. Screw it. I mean, I'll have to see where the shipping's from, but like, yeah, I don't know, whatever. Rock Jam. I've no idea what this is. The one I'm like, this looks like a kid's drum set, but like, there's stuff missing from it here. Like, they have the crash, and they have that. They have these two pedals. They're basic. I've never heard of Rock Jam. And it looked like, when I first saw this, I thought it was like a freaking, like a toy, like it hooks up to a video game or something, but no, it isn't. CB percussion, we got another YDD 60. These are great. It's funny. Old school YDD5. Some loose tom-toms, bongos, always bongos. Tama hi-hat set. Like, these look like they're horrible, but they might actually sound kind of interesting. I have one of these. I don't know why I bought it. I thought it could replace the Roland one, and I was like, nope, this doesn't work at all. And then I ended up having to fix the Roland one. Zildjian 14-inch ZBT crash cymbal. That's not too bad of a deal. $30. That's a good deal. Low volume splash cymbal. What's the point? Like, I guess if you were like in a coffee shop and you wanted to make annoying sounds every now and then while you were like playing acoustic guitar, I guess. Yeah. There's that crash cymbal again. Oh, Alesis mesh pad, sold as is, untested. Simmons kick pad. That looks kind of cool though. That looks like an OG one. I know it's not, but that looks cool. Another tongue drum. 13-inch hi-hat. Allegarian. No interest in that. So here's it's an 8-inch Remo drum pad. This is the classic. This looks brand freaking new though. That's crazy. You know why? Because someone probably replaced the head inside. You can replace the head inside. It looks like it's dusty. So maybe it's just been like not played at all ever. That's a little expensive for the old school Remo practice pad, but like I am a fan of those. Some drumsticks. Here's just some drumsticks here. So we're at the end of this rope. We don't have a whole lot of drums and percussion. Like this is kind of not too good. I've got all sorts of stuff. I'm at so many cymbals. Like too many cymbals. At least like a couple $100 in cymbals, which is like easily value is value, right? Value is value. Like you have a couple $100 in cymbals, you have a couple $100, period. Like that you don't really lose that money. That money kind of stays around because you can always just sell it back as long as you don't break them. Yep. As long as you don't break them, they keep their value pretty much. You know, like there's always a certain amount of loss on value, but like it's not that much if you think about it. If you buy used cymbals, their used value stays pretty much relatively the same. So like, you know, once you've already passed over that crossover, it's not that big of a deal. And for new cymbals, you should only ever buy new cymbals if you're like 100% dedicated or you're balling. You're just like, I'm balling, fuck it. That's how I got my bash ride. I was like, I'm going to spend $500, $600 on a cymbal. I'm balling. And then I fucking broke that shit. It didn't like, it's not completely broken, but I broke it. Or a multitude of people probably broke it over time, but I broke it. The Fast Snake. So we're done with that section of the Phantom Menace. Which is, by the way, one of the best movies of all time. If you've never seen the episode 1 Phantom Menace, if you were a kid at that time, it was probably the best thing that you could ever watch because it was so bad. And yet, like, you didn't really care because it was a bunch of stuff flying on a screen in front of your face, and that was, like, all that really mattered to you because you were like, this is freaking sick as fuck. I don't know, like, you couldn't do the same thing for Battlefield Earth, really. I didn't feel like... I mean, I didn't see Battlefield Earth in theaters, though. So I'll be honest about that. That's also kind of like one of those movies that are shot like a Discovery Channel documentary. This angle too is very Battlefield Earth. Well, you were trying to spell your name. I don't know. While you were still trying to poop your pants, I was fucking you in the ass. It's just like demonetized immediately. Battlefield Earth is a great movie. It's a great movie. It's a documentary as it turns. You know, it's a documentary of the future events or past events of the L. Ron Hubbard cinematic universe. TV shows from its own. Why would Chick-fil-A do TV shows? I would say that like that's just like McDonald's have, or like it's like Chuck E. Cheese. When you ever watch the Chuck E. Cheese TV channel? CEC TV is so good. So like all the like when you would go to Chuck E. Cheese as a kid, they would have they had TVs that were like broadcasting like a fake TV channel the whole entire time, and it was like parody songs and like a lot of like just skits. And like nowadays I think that they like do a lot of it's essentially because in the 90s it was all like that. It was entirely like that, like just from wall to wall. What like just like Bill Nye style content, like, you know, and like they were just doing parody stuff and like doing like all sorts of like callbacks to things. That's what they were doing with Chuck E. Cheese. And then they kind of started doing I think they started interjecting with other content. So they were like, oh well, here's an episode of Power Rangers. And so they'd have like Power Rangers on the TV and shit like that. Donkey Kong Adventures, things, and that got a little tedious, and I think that like at some point people were like, oh, this kind of sucks. And then when they did the change, I think that they officially like stopped. They still do Chuck E. Cheese TV, but I don't see too much of it anymore. If you go online, you look this stuff up too. Like the people that worked on it, I think it's people who work on it. I hope. People that like really know this stuff have uploaded like hours and hours and hours of footage from it, and it's like, you talk about lost media. It's like media that no one knew existed because it was just playing in the background, and like you weren't like aware of that. You're a kid too. You're like a little kid. Chuck E. Cheese rant. Supercut that now. You gotta Jamie supercut that right now. Oh my god. I need water though. What's next on the agenda? We were going to do, well, I was talking about like the studio aspects of this room and like trying to figure out the next like steps for this stuff over yonder, which was the original thing that I opened up with, other than playing drums, which was fun for a minute. I still will. I will. Come on. I know how to do this. I know the streaming thing. I know how to keep the people entertained. No, this is just like the prototype for it. I started out with the other stream the other day, and I was just like, I should just keep doing these for like a little bit, just to see where they go. How long have I been streaming so far? 45 minutes? It's nothing. That's nothing. Where do we go from here? I actually haven't played guitar either in a long ass time, so I might do a little bit of that later. But we will probably need to clean up most of this stuff too. I do want to get a looping kind of setup going on in here, so I could be just completely out of my mind in the tone zone. That would be so fucking. Also, like, I've thought about this many times. I'm like, I can't bring myself to actually do like any of that stuff. Because it's like, how am I supposed to take myself seriously in art at all? Like and I feel like that might be what's going on with people right now. Is just being like, oh, yeah, we might actually be a little bit screwy on the whole like media thing, where we like don't exactly know what we're doing, but we know how to get the things that we want. So like, instead of it being like, hey, like this idea is gonna go really good and like people are gonna understand this idea, it's not about the ideas anymore. It's about, hey, we're going to do this idea, and then that'll jump a little bit of this algorithmic thing, and then that'll get an expansion of the algorithm beyond that, so that we can crack this code and get in on this, like, release videos on a specific wavelength, so that like even though we're not hitting major numbers, we're still like hitting the specifics on the underneath, so that we can get these endorsement deals and do all this. And like, none of that has anything to do with entertaining people. None of that, like literally none of that shit has anything to do with entertaining anyone. And in the end, what it does is it just makes people very, very confused about what they're like watching or what they're, consuming. So it's kind of like, that's, of course that's like always the way that the world is going. I mean, like, everybody's been making money off of advertising in the entertainment industry for years and years and years and years. It's just that now the advertisers actually are are partially responsible for the entertainment, meaning that they're like deciding how people do their own business within the entertainment. I can't get into the specifics of any of this, but like, there are definitely cases of people just like going out of their way. Just people going out of their way to essentially get hurt on purpose, and it's like it's not just the victimhood thing. It's beyond that. It's there's this sensibility of if I trip and I fall, I'll create the snowball, and the snowball will get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then I'll be at the center of all of it, controlling it. It's like, do you understand what that means, right? Like you're in the center of a snowball, snowballing out of control, crashing into everything. You're not in the center of control of anything. You just believe that if you start something going, that all this fervor is going to come in and like all this money is going to roll in on you. But then what's going to happen after that? Like what are you going to get after you take you have to come up with the next thing, right? And so that's entertainment. Entertainment becomes like just a series of snowballing out of control, crashing into trees over and over again, and then nobody ever really like getting into the perpetual like ideology of like, okay, well maybe there's some deeper concept to what we're doing, or artistic merit to what we're doing, or possibly even like if the things for me are like this. In we could break it down into different categories of entertainment, but like the primary one for me is comedy. Like if you're talking about like where it's broken for comedy, it's mostly broken in your like you're not getting like an open-minded general sensibility of comedy anymore. You're getting very closed-minded, focused, biased perspectives on every single element that would, instead of it being like, okay, this is like, that's funny because of circumstance, that's funny because I don't like the other thing. That's kind of how it becomes. And so you start seeing that in all of these different pockets of different kinds of comedy. Not just and don't mean just like stand up and shit like that, because stand up doesn't have that big of a problem actually. It's like most people, if you go to an open mic, most people just suck, which is fine. That's how all open mics have been forever. But it's like going to an open mic is different than like being a YouTuber and having thousands of subscribers and trying to make jokes in your videos that are like hit pieces on YouTubers and other people on the internet that you've never met before. And so that comedy, that concept of comedy, which is still comedy, it's not satire, of course, but you have to do it in the guise of comedy, otherwise it wouldn't be fair use. You have to do it in the guise of satire. Satire is comedy, and therefore you have to do it in that mode. And so when you make these jokes, and there's negatives that are made as negatives, right? Like what it means is that like what like you as the listener, you as the person on the other side, you can either go, wow, look, I agree with all these points because I don't like that person, haha, it's funny. Or you could look at it, it's like, who the fuck are you? Who the fuck is this guy talking about people on the internet? I don't even know who the fuck this guy is. So these jokes don't hit anything. That's how it is. And so you have one or the other. It's either you already don't like the subject matter that the person's talking about and making the jokes about, and then therefore it hits on that level, that petty level, or you have this like realization that this is just some guy on the internet and he's not like interesting. So you'd have to have actual comedy to be funny and actually say things, and there aren't that many. I don't really feel like there are that many guys like that do commentary videos on the internet that are actually humorous. I think they're more just like blogger people like that they make jokes on accident more, just like they have to do it because it's a satire, because otherwise it wouldn't be fair use. And I'm specifically talking about people that talk about YouTube commentary, like people that are talking about like Boogie or fucking Wings of Redemption, those people, or even like those Kiwi Farms guys, which is like, it's fine, like you do whatever you want, man, but like you can't be like, hey, you're a druggie, and then be like, hey, I'm gonna go crack another beer, I'm gonna smoke from a bong. It's like, I mean, come on, man, what's the difference? Who gives a fuck? Like, I mean, the lolcows are lolcows. This is just how it is. Like they're just like the most degenerate people are the people that talk about the most degenerate people, and it becomes a shit show and a circle jerk. I mean, we all know that. But this is now seeping into, I feel like, every single, like all the YouTube genesis, like the genesis of YouTube that started out like all of this stuff, right? Like, and branched out into like other, forms of AdSense. But then like at that time, there were all of those like guys that like were like, fuck this, we want to make money directly off of our own videos. And they started, like AVGN, of course, like was the first guy. He had his own server and everything, and branched out. So you had to do it through Screw Attack, all of that. Point is, what I'm getting to here is that those guys went through all that shit and they went back to YouTube. And they're still on YouTube now. And so you have people who are satirical and like that are like still doing the old thing, but their film brain is morphing into Doug Walker. Like, how is that possible? How is it possible that, like, this is like, you look at him and you're like, this guy's like literally morphing into him. This is crazy. I can't even believe that this is how, and this is what I'm saying is like in the field of all this stuff, you're looking at it like, why can't people just step away from this? And like, I get it's culture, like this culture is culture. Like they're not watching movies, probably they're not watching TV, maybe, but like they're playing video games, maybe a little bit, talking to their friends. But if you're engrossed in full blown pop culture through your own network, then you will at some point potentially morph into some other guy who's more successful than you, which is really weird. And I would never wish that on anyone. I just don't want anyone to deal with that. So all I'm saying at this point is, like, if you've got this whole concept of comedy where instead of it being based on general humor, meaning like, I don't even say like slapstick and stuff like that, but like the concepts of humor, like the things that are actually funny, like a gag is what I'm saying. If you don't do a real gag every now and then, if all of your comedy is just the words that you say and your discourse, you may as well just be Christopher Hitchens. Like, you may as well just be Richard Dawkins. You may as well just be, a modern day philosopher and not a comedian. It's like the Norm Macdonald quote of like, wouldn't that just be an insult to modern day philosophers, calling a comedian a modern day philosopher? But then it's like, well, what's that? What does that mean even in the first place? Like, what would be a modern day philosopher? It's somebody who tries to polarize, probably somebody who tries to take viewpoints and separate them so that there's you can only pick two things and no gray area in between. That's literally how every single fucking thing is going on right now. And like, in life, that's not how it is. In life, everything is pretty much always the gray area. So you would have to do your content and your media pretty much within that gray area, and not do the stupid polarizing of shit all the time to try to get people to think about it when there's no thinking to be had outside, or like try to argue against concepts that like aren't gonna help or hurt anyone. They're just ideas sometimes. But yeah, I'm just getting way ahead of myself. The horror stuff is even crazier to me, because so that's comedy. So comedy is all people trying to polarize and try to separate everything and try to say, so it's only funny because you don't like these things. That's comedy right now, and I think it's stupid. I think that people need to move away from that. They need to come into the kind of concept of cosmic reality, where it's like, okay, well, like cosmic funny, like things are funny outside, like where you can, it's not just self-deprecating and like just being a hater on yourself, but you're actually like dissecting the reasons why you think that this is funny, and not breaking it down for people, but just dissecting it so that it becomes broken into ways that is dissectable or digestible for other people. The horror thing is crazier. So the horror stuff's like, okay, so the reason why horror stuff works is because we all have an innate fear of reality. And I think that every single person on Earth right now is particularly enthralled with horror stuff, or horror, or some type of scary thing. If it's like popping pimples. It's all or like real life stuff. First of all, like actual gore, violence, that sort of thing. Or in the case of most people, I think it's stories. Like people love ghost stories. They love horror stories. They love hearing about that sort of thing. I'll talk about this just briefly. So when it comes to YouTube and horror stories, there's a whole history to this. So there's a couple of things. Number one is the beginning of it is obviously the creepypasta stuff and 4chan and people posting stuff from X onto YouTube. That's the origins of it. There's a lot of those old school videos. They're super rare now, actually. To find a lot of these is kind of difficult, but there's a lot of them that are super famous. You've got the stupid Squidward one and stuff like that later on, but like even earlier on, there was a lot of stuff that was like, creepypasta, weird stuff that was out on the internet. And that was the origins of it. And then I think maybe in like 2011, 12 maybe, a channel popped up called Horror Stories. That was basically just a clip style channel that would show like clips of pictures of things and would talk about real life horror stories. This channel, I can't even express this, is still like the freaking genesis of like every single horror YouTuber. Every single horror YouTuber at least one time has ripped off something from him. Like there are people who are literally still now like going back to his old stuff and being like, oh, how do I pick this bit out? He came back too a couple years ago and did a whole documentary on that Korean ship that sank. So he's still active, but he's just not really that active anymore. So that's the one side. And then the other one is JCS, the crime documentary guy, who got super huge off of just basically showing interrogation videos and making a couple comments every now and then. This channel changed the way everybody was because everybody was copying 48 hours before that. There were like quite a few channels that still do copy 48 hours, don't get me wrong. There's still quite a few where they're like doing the podcast horror style thing, but it's the crime JCS crime channel that really got things kick started for like 9 million other channels until eventually you got Chris Chen being posted on one of those ripoff channels. So it's like you've got I wouldn't say rip-off channels. Like the concept of it is, of course, found footage, right? Like all of these are found footage channels. They're all based on taking footage that exists of things and making a scary story out of it, which is usually a real story, although sometimes they kind of mix the information a little bit. That does happen, and I noticed that with some of these. So if you watch them enough, you realize that this is the thing that I've noticed, at least for the last like 5 years, they're progressively starting to circle jerk themselves. So meaning that they are running dry on topics. They have to basically constantly look for new things that are happening in the news to make stuff. And if that's not there, they'll legitimately just copy an old case that's already been covered by like 15 other people. And it's to a T based on the concept of subscription views. So like these channels are less likely for people to be like YouTube viewer people. It's more of people that put this stuff on and they just like go to sleep or whatever. They're anticipating the fact that like people aren't going to actually really be watching this almost to a certain degree. And that's something that I noticed where I was like, wait a minute, this is actually probably how this goes. This is probably actually how this works. This is probably and then I started noticing a lot more channels doing this, and it was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's probably what's going on. And so with them, you don't have to be funny, right? You just have to show and tell. That's all you need to do. You just have to show some pictures and tell people about a story. Easy. The rest of it is the sauce, right? The rest of it is the sauce, your style, your elements, if you got a face to it or whatever. Some of these guys can kind of nail it and kind of get it good. I think Nick Crowley does a good job of like just not putting his face in things all the time. Although I think some of his videos are just really lazy. Like absurdly lazy. Like I'm not even gonna lie, like I think the Daily Capper one is like one of the laziest videos I've ever seen, like ever made about anything. Like I was surprised by it. I was like, this is like the tonality of it was weird, first of all, because like you're trying to make something that's creepy, it's really gross and creepy, scary. It's not scary though. It's just gross and creepy. It's like putting this music in the background was like a little like the weird sound effects and stuff. Trying to make it be like, ooh, this is creepy and weird that this happened. It's like, but it's not. It's totally just like a normal fucked up thing that happened. And like the other fact of it is that I'm almost positive like almost every guy who's ever been online has done weird shit like that. Like it would be difficult for most men to be like, oh well, this is just, it's like, no, the behavior that was really disgusting in that one was obviously the grooming and all the nasty shit. But the Daily Capper was like the stupidest thing ever. Like just stupid bullshit retard, like trying to get like 15-year-olds to be like, check out all this pussy that's out. Like it's like it's like a guy trying to share like his like videos of porn that he made, you know those kinds of guys that like think that that's really fucking cool, and then you're just like, you're gay. Like you're just showing me your dick. Like what are you doing? Like you're gay. like just like what? And of course, like that's the only time that you can really say that, right? Like if somebody like being, no, what the fuck? I'm so good at sex. like fucking who cares? Like who gives? Like this is the funniest idea. Like I remember like my old coworker told me that somebody FaceTimed him while he was getting fucked and was like, yeah, I just fucked her mom, and it's like, and he's like, isn't that cool? I was like, that's the grossest fucking retarded shit I've ever heard in my life, my guy. Like, I would have just hung up on his ass and been like, don't fucking call me ever again. Like you fucking you will be brain dead in a few years. Just trust me on this one. When you get your head bashed in by her husband or just in general because you've been just being weird. That's me. That's also me making like a horrible like Nick Roachford joke. Like whenever you watch the streams and he's just like, and then and then I rape your mom and then I kill you, and it's like, chill the fuck out. What the fuck are you talking about? You would not do that. This is so funny. I like that shit though. It's good. I've spent so much time recently just like talking about nothing. Trying to stay hydrated. I need water too. I need to like rehydrate myself at some point here. Rehydrate. I'm just rambling about YouTube and like being pissed off about content forever. I mean, like I could get even crazier about music. Music's the worst. Music's my least favorite thing in the world right now. That's a fucking fact. I think it's because nobody really likes ensemble anymore, and everybody's really interested in doing solo music, which is like the most retarded, like crappy thing ever. Like if you think about it, like how many people really want to go see a band of one guy on stage doing a looper pedal and like playing some samples? The sample based thing. Listen, like I get it. Like I understand it. I've been on this thing for like decades now, where I'm like, you do understand that we'd be better off without this, right? Like almost everybody's like, you understand that like musicians and music in general and people who listen to music would be happier right now if we had just a little bit of a technological slowdown on the sampling stuff, because at the end of the day, the problem with it isn't the AI stuff. It's not what you think it is. The problem is this: average everyday listeners are not musicians. They do not understand music. They don't understand it. They just feel it. It's just a feeling for them. It's just an emotion. They will literally tell you that a genre of music is just a mood. That's what they will literally tell you. People who are not musicians will like literally not get that like reggae music has rules. And I don't mean this in like a like negative way, like people out there like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. But no, it's like, go study this. Go study music and genres of music, and listen to the actual music and what's going on with each individual instrument. That's it. That's it. That's all you need to do. That's all you need to do. And once you do that, you'll come to the conclusion that it's very difficult for sample-based music to be as creative as non-sample-based music. And I mean that in the truest sense, where it's what it means is that like if you listen to it over and over and over again, you'll find new things. You'll be interested in it. You'll have a respect for it. When you go see it live, you'll want to see it, check out all of these different elements and be interested in like how things are done and how certain sounds are made and everything. When you go to just a sample-based system and you play just sample-based genres of music, which is not bad, you have to have other elements of the culture to back that up. In hip hop, you have to have rappers, you have to have MCs, you have to have people, you have to have the graffiti, you have to have the breakdancing. But then later on, it's like you have to have all this car culture and all these, even the vinyl figurines and the stuff like that. Like you have to have all of these cultural elements to add it all up. But then it's been stripped away and stripped away and stripped away. And then what ends up happening is it goes back to the old style of making music. It's the only way that people can be unique, because they literally can't just like, cause what, like a beat's a beat, like you, and then you give it to somebody's famous or popular, they're just famous or popular. It doesn't mean anything for the same sense as it used to mean years ago, when like you were like famous and popular, you're making things happen. Like you could get people on record labels, you could get people deals, you could help each other in the industry. But now it's very separated and very hard for people to do anything. Because if you don't have those first connections in the beginning, you're stuck in your world. You're not going to ever get to... You could probably even... Like, if you got super popular on YouTube, and you got super big, you could do some small shows. If you got super big on SoundCloud and stuff like that, unless you have some sort of major cultural backing, meaning like you're specifically I don't know, like a guy from a specific area of India, or like someone who has some sort of major cultural religious background or something, like you will not be able to break through that wall. Like that wall will be very difficult for you to break through. You might be able to book a show here and there at big venues, but like to do full tours and like be able to break into mainstream media and all that stuff, you'd have to literally diversify your bonds. You'd probably have to get into politics, to be honest. Like you'd have to be a politician to be like, oh look, I made music. Like it's like that. It's so depressing. It's like, what is there to fight for? Like I've watched so many bands just fail, but they didn't really fail. They were successful. They were good, but they didn't make anything of themselves because there was nothing to be made. There was no fame, there was no fortune, there was nowhere for anybody to, like, what are you going to sell? What are you going to buy from these people other than music or like shirts, apparel? Like it becomes the culture is what you're selling. It's not the music. And that's what hurts the music, is the culture is not what hurts the music. It's what makes the music. But the culture, taking away from the actual concepts of music as an art form, does. And sampling does a lot to that, where it's like you could use it really, really cleverly. Like you could use it as a sound font for every single individual instrument and play everything individually, and then have a full mix that sounds really unique and clever. And then but do people do that? No, they don't. They take samples of songs and they put them in arrangements of orders, and they copy other people's music from vocal melodies, and they take things and they take things and they take things and they rework things, and they have to like use specific samples of specific things so they can like say that they are associated with something else. All of that's fine. None of that's potentially bad for art, right? Like that's how art evolves. I have no problem with that, but I'm just saying that if you want to make crazy new interesting sounds and like evolve the genres of music that exist, or even just evolve music in general to new heights and new areas of interest. And people have to, I mean, the number one, people have to start breaking away from traditional song structures and the concepts of music that they're making. They need to add an interlude, more concepts. I mean, honestly, dude, rock musicians just need to start doing skits. Let's just start doing skits. Like, there's no reason to not do it. Like, there's no reason to not do it. By the way, like, you could always do like things that are outside of it. I guess it's just because people think it's corny, but it's like, who gives a fuck, dude? Like, people used to do that and it was cool. Interludes within the songs, meaning like, you have these bands that are like trying to be prog bands, but they don't do anything like interesting within the music. It's like interconject, like, you know, when like you have a melody and a counter melody and a counter melody and the counter melody, and then you have a reference inside of a reference within a reference inside of it. All of this can be done with audio. Like, none of this is outside of the realm of audio. All of this is totally possible. It's just like nobody really wants to think about any of this stuff. What else could you do that would be completely different that no one is doing right now? Well, I mean, like, any type of musical interlude in which you're going from A to B to C, but you're going interjecting between A, B's, and C, D, E, F, and G, where you have very long, strong song structures that like actually go in different directions. Now, this gets you into stupid show tunes territory, but there's always possibilities outside of like just doing stuff like people used to do it and making things interesting. And I think that like this is all the stuff that people need to think about. They need to think about music outside of the audio spectrum. Think about music as an art form, the same way that people used to think about music as an art form. Like, think about writing songs about sounds. You know, like, they're always train songs, and they always, you know, like, they always have like a train rhythm. You know, there's always that sensibility of like, you have to combine cleverness with the capability of the songwriter and be able to like mix it together. It's difficult when people don't have that. It's like, I also feel like not like people are really interested in themselves. I don't care anymore, and it's not like I don't care anymore in the sense that like I'm to do these things. Not it's not about the end result. It's about the combination of everything that you get while you're listening to it. It's the journey of listening to the album, so that like the next time you listen to it, you pick up on things that you didn't get last time. I think that other genres of music, outside of rock music, do get this very much, but they're slowly starting to lose their grasp on it. Their grasp on it. They're slowly starting to lose their grasp on it. I'm honestly feeling that way. I've listened to a couple new Kanye songs, a couple new hip hop, like bigger hip hop tracks, and I'm just not getting it anymore. It's not what it used to be. Like, and the the thing with pop music is that like things are not as experimental as they used to be. I mean, like, I think what it is people just figured out how to get the nastiest sounds, and they were like, we don't need to go back. We don't need to go back to anything. And then they realized that the nastiest sounds weren't popular enough for them, and then hold on, I'm moving the stream up and it's still not working. Oh, there we go. They realized the nastiest sounds weren't working for them from a sales perspective, at least in today's day and age, because you can't listen to nasty sounds all the time, and streaming is about listening to things 24/7. So a lot of the swing from like dubstep related, like all EDM stuff that was going on in like the earlier half of the 21st century, like you start seeing that kind of shift over in 2015, 2016, and then it's like entirely soft pop music now. Like, well, I mean, like the biggest tracks, the most popular, I mean, like, let's be real, all that shit's data mined and farmed, right, guys? Am I right, guys? Like, I wouldn't say that it's data mined or farmed. Like, there are definitely like It's like my friend showing me the Mitski tracks streaming, like, so it's like paywalled, you can't see like what's there, but like there is a gray screen where you can actually kind of tell where the tracks have been listened to. And like Jakarta, Indonesia in general just lights up like a Christmas, just so bright that you can't even see the country. And it's like, I don't think there are that many Mitski fans in Indonesia. That's a little odd. I mean, there may be, but that's a little odd. And like you see the numbers and you're like, right, those are totally real numbers. Like they're, it's like, does anybody care anymore about themselves? Like, do they care about their integrity at all? Like, they just want to fucking pretend like they're famous now. Like, that's like, that's how I feel about this. It's like, because it's like, you just go back to work, you know, go back to work, you know, like everybody else, go back to work. But nah, I mean, like that's the whole thing, right? Like trying to make the music thing, you're like, but you're trying to get a living wage off of this. That always got me, because I was like, from who? What company is paying you to make a living wage off of your music? You're trying to fool people. Trying to fool people into believing that you can't be your own person and be your own freaking thing. But that's exactly what you're doing, is you're trying to fool people into believing that you need pity at all. It's like, you don't need any fucking pity. And like every single person that I met that had this mentality, I was like, dude, you're just looking for pity to not work. Like, just imagine being like, I don't want to have to be a member of society at all. I shouldn't have to, because I play guitar and sing about my girlfriend. Fucking cares? Who cares? It's like, well, if you're really good at it, then people will care. But you gotta write a little bit more than that. You gotta be a little bit more than that. You gotta write some fucking songs that are like meaningful to me, to not just me, but like everyone. You got to think about this shit in advance, or at least you would write one song that's so good it's unfucking deniable. If you write one song that's so good it's undeniable, like if you write fucking Don't Stop Believing, but you're not Journey, then like, yeah, you fine. Like, I'll give you a fucking cookie there. Like, you get to have that. But it's like, I've really felt like people are writing great songs. There are people that are probably writing great songs. I'm just not hearing them. And it's my fault, right? It's totally my fault for not being, like, for even being in my car all the time with the radio on and never hearing it, right? Totally my fault for not hearing these great songs. We're gonna rip off that Orange Juice beat one more fucking time on a song. Like, literally, if I hear that shit, dun, 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 I mean, like, I guess you could technically say that's freaking Good Times, but like, still, it's like, come on, bro. Like, this stuff is like getting old. Like, the song rip off stuff is like, just, it's the same as the horror stories rip off shit. It's like, come on, like, you don't have anything better to. And then you get forced, it's forced in your fucking face, and the entire time you're just like, why? Why is this this is popular? There's no way. I've experienced, like, at least a couple times where it's like, I get it to a certain degree. Like, you can understand popularity for some artists because of their essentially media grooming. Like, being groomed by Disney Channel or some shit like that. Where it's like, okay, well, at least they have, like, they've been, like, literally around entertainers nonstop, and they, like, don't have any concept of, like, trying to fake something to make it. They're just doing the thing, which is fine. I have no problem with, like, Olivia Rodrigo or, like, even Taylor Swift to a certain extent. Although with T-Swizzle, that's a different story, just because it's like, I cannot express how much I hate people who re-record their albums. I can't express this. If you re-record your album, you're basically just trying to get people who did work on your album, trying to get them not paid. And that's like the biggest dickhead move of all time for musicians. Like, whenever people do that, Frank Zappa did that. Ozzy did that. Like, people did that I respect and love and care about. But, like, at the same time, I'm just like, this is not. That's the biggest dickhead move ever, because it's like people are used to hearing things from the original version of it, right? I get being like, I'm gonna make a whole different version of it. It's re-recording. It's like those fucking stupid, shitty 50s and 60s like artists that re-record their shit. Like, you're just gonna make it worse. Like, I mean, like, I'm sorry, but like, you're just gonna make a worse version of it. Like, even if you try to change the arrangement, it's like you're gonna make a worse version of it to try to convince your fans that it's a better version just because you were the only person involved in it, just so that you could skim out like a couple people out of some dollar dues. Like, that's it. That's the whole reason. Why didn't you just make 4 fucking new albums? Like, that pisses me off. You have all the free time in the world to make 4 fucking new albums, and you don't do it. It sucks. It's like, the fuck is that? Like, who? And people are like, this is such a good idea. Like, no. Like, the fuck is this? Like, this is really where we're at? Like we're going to, like, just let artists be like, yeah, we just want to make more money off my own songs. like, also, like, when you have every single song in a chart like that, it's like, this is not a system that's working. This is a broken system, because the only way that is organic at all is either no one's listening to music, or realistically you have an Autobot play system, bought out a whole country of people that are just auto playing your music nonstop somehow. Believe me. And it's, you would think that this doesn't exist, but then you look into the statistics and you're like, this is definitely happening. Like, this is definitely happening. There's no way that this is not happening. People are just bot farming views and counts on things and, like, being like, yeah, I'm famous. Like, holy shit, man. Like, this is gross. And then, like, that stuff bothers me. I just feel like no one's doing anything interesting. Like, if the MTV days were now, we'd be fucked. There'd be, like, nothing interesting. Like, how the fuck would anyone no one would be interested. They'd just turn it off. They'd be like, this is gay. Lack of a better word, it's just like, this is just dumb. Like, I don't want to even talk about that. This is patient zero. Because it was the 80s. I would talk about that too, but I don't want to get canceled for that. That's the... it's more so like, I had watched the Patient Zero documentary, and I was so enthralled by it because of the fact that it was attempting to polarize people about a topic that's very, like, kind of sensitive. Like, I mean, you're trying to polarize people on the topic of, like, this was not the man who spread AIDS. He was a man who spread AIDS. That's all that you get out of the documentary. It's amazing. It's like the most incredible, insane, like, the mentality behind it is literally, no. He was not the original spreader of AIDS. This is what actually happened. And then they go into it, and it's like worse than you would have ever thought it was like. And he was worse of a person at the end of the day than you thought he was like. And you realize that even though they're definitely wrong about the Patient Zero thing, they're definitely right about having to put an end to this. Like, to have to, like, to basically tell people, like, hey, if you don't protect yourself, you are going to die. Like, this is true. And it was a big deal at the time, but, like, even crazier is the fact that, like, there are people in that documentary who are like, this was the most pure form of love that you could ever have, and he took it away from us. Who the fuck is... no one took anything... You know, it's like this weird sense of, like, well, there was no fear of sexually transmitted... What about syphilis? Like, what about like diseases, sexually transmitted diseases that have killed people in the past? It's like, there's this part of me that's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? And this is in regards to like basically a guy being like, when I was younger, I used to go to bathhouses and just fuck random people, and that was the greatest thing ever. And like when you say that in like the context that he said it in, it makes it sound like it's this great like love. It's like the most amazing type of love that you could ever get. This is like but you're describing an orgy. Like, no, like, no, that's not like it is not. It's like this. You start realizing like, but that's not this. That's I mean like, but it isn't like it just. And I don't mean this in some sort of like fucked up way, but I mean like in the sense of like, no, I mean like you couldn't think like maybe like I don't know, being in a safer situation than that, or like having more contact with people. Like the thing that made it interesting to him was the anonymity. It was the fact that you didn't need to know about the fact. And it's like, that's why it's disgusting. Like that's why it's gross. Like if you know the person, it's like, who cares? Like that's good, it's fine. If you're all like good with the health side of things, it's like everything's good. But like the fact that you want to like, it's the same. It would be like me going into a woman's bathroom and trying to fuck random women. It's disgusting. It's like the most insane thing. I can't even believe that possibly could be said. And yet at the same time, I'm like, okay, this is clearly just somebody being like, I had a ball. It's like, all right, that's fine. You know, it goes up there. It's up there with like people that. Like the guy who the guy who goes on Rogan and talks about shooting up heroin recreationally. It's like that, where it's like, you know you're wrong, right? Like, you know that's not what you're doing. Like, your behavior, you believe that your behavior is your behavior and that it's totally acceptable and things are good. But the truth is that you have a control over it due to dosage control and access to chemical substances that would allow you to break away from it. It's like Guga saying, just work out all the time. Lift weights. It's like, Guga, you are rich and you have a fucking home gym. and that's on food. That's the concept of it being on food. So now food, drugs, and fucking random people. Well, I don't even look at it as gay. I just think of it as like, if you went to a bathhouse and just went to an orgy and like fucked random people and then came out of it, would you be like, oh, that was the most beautiful form of sex that ever existed? No, it's like really creepy and weird. Like that's not at all beautiful. That's disgusting and creepy and weird. Like that's like my friends talking about like going to a gay bathhouse, but we can go into that later. I don't talk. Gay bathhouse story is funny. I can't even really get into that. That's more of someone else's story. It's not even my own story. And I was not there, so I could not really talk about that. But yeah, no, Patient Zero is crazy, man. I suggest everybody go watch it. It's a good documentary. Like they really do, like, I think as a person kind of paint him as like he's a good person. It's like, I think for like most people, they're good people. Even like horrible people, like and like their core values, they believe that they're good people, and they do all sorts of things to try to make sure that they do things the right way that they morally justifiably believe in. But then they don't oftentimes understand very basic concepts of like human society, and like just can't like integrate properly into certain things due to just simply like having, you know, like we all have mental divergences where we like put things off and don't do things because we are embarrassed or like ashamed of ourselves in certain sensibilities. So of course, like when it comes to that, it's like you have all this inner turmoil that's built up because of, you know, obvious reasons, and your release is this specific way of doing things where like you don't actually have to take any responsibility for anything until you had to take responsibility for things. And looking at the responsibility as a negative and being like, oh well, like it, you know, it ended that beautiful love. It's like, it didn't actually. The thing is that you were just unaware of the facts until something like that happened, because you could have died from you could have got syphilis, you could have traded syphilis off with all sorts of other people, you could have died from another sexually transmitted disease that was probably that could have been created at any period of time, at any moment, or it could have just simply been a disease in general, like coronavirus, where you just are spreading it, and you're just because you're all together and you're all touching each other. That happens. But to blame that on your feelings does not make any sense to me, and it seems so fucking weird and odd. And so like that really drew me into like a position of being like, wow, this is crazy. And then the guy ended up being like a full-blown AIDS denier, and like still was like spreading AIDS. I mean I hate to say that, like that's not like a like you can't even like you can't like even say, I mean like that's just what happened. It'll be like being pissed off or angry about like the US dropped the atomic bomb on the Japanese, like get canceled by Japanese people. It's like that's just a fucking fact. I mean, like I can't like say anything about it. And I already said like he's not a bad guy. I thought he was a good guy, like cool guy, fun party dude. You know, like go crazy looking, like straight up 70s gay guy. Just like cruiser guy. You know, and French. His name was literally Gaetan. So like Gaetan, yeah. I mean, you can't write that. That's just a fact that happened. And so of course, like all these things just added up, and like I think what it was when they saw the numbers, they were just like, this has to be it. We cracked the code. But they don't realize like this is not like the numbers are just one set of the numbers, because they get around. So like it's one set of the numbers is one set of the numbers, but like it spreads like wildfire after that. And then of course like all the other ways, I really like, I think what happened was when it got into bloodstreams and it got into like actually like into people like blood, like people who were like donating blood and like giving it to kids and shit, like that really was like when it got real crazy. But yeah, talking about the AIDS pandemic, like that's if people want to talk about, like, you want to talk about COVID, you pretty much have to talk about the AIDS pandemic, because that was the original. We don't know what the fuck is going on, but here's what we know. Like that was how it was. They called it the gay cancer. They called it gay. They called it gay cancer. You can't write this. This is real. Like, this actually was what people referred to it when they got it. There was no name for it. And then people started dying, and like famous people started dying. They were realizing like, oh shit, these famous people were gay? Of course, like that. I mean, like, come on, man, it's Hollywood. Like that, you're gonna get everybody. That's how it is. I think back on all of that stuff, and it's like the whole history of I mean, like, I'm not a politics channel. I'll talk about it every now and then. I hate talking about mainstream politics. I think that blue and red are just completely, like, they're purple now. Like, there's no fucking difference. The primary difference is this: how much control do you want in your government? Think about it. Do you want an optimistic government, or do you want a pessimistic government? Because if you want an optimistic government, then you would probably vote for a Democrat, because they will just do everything for you optimistically. But a pessimistic president, then you vote for Trump, because then you won't really be sure what will happen, but you kind of know that you expect a worse outcome, and in the end you're pleasantly surprised by the outcome, because you didn't get the worst outcome. So it's kind of like, do you want to look at the world as half empty, or do you want to look at the world as half full? It's still fucking half empty and half full at the same time. It's still the same thing. There's nothing different. It's still the same thing. But which one do you want? I paint that picture in that way. So like, because the problem is that right now there is no like real Democratic side to be had. It's more of like, you have the Democratic powerhouse itself, but I mean, it's like Kamala Harris, but Kamala Harris is the Democratic Party. It's like they put a mech out there, and then have her talk, and then she walks away, and then that's basically it, because like it's a figurehead for the thing. I mean, they don't have Biden anymore. They don't really have anybody who's super tally ho, like freaking mentally capable, and they also know that would be off brand for them. If they had somebody like that, they would lose, because they tried that with Hillary and it did not work. You try to outdo Trump with the Trumping, and it didn't work. I mean, you can get the popular vote, but you can't get the actual United States to vote for you, because it's difficult to sway people away from. It's difficult for people to sway away from the sway, is really what it is. I'd say for that one in particular, it was like after Obama. Like, you have to understand also that Middle America, like, not just like hated him, but like, it's not like even racist hatred. It's like straight, just real deal, pure like blaming. Always got to blame something on someone. Like that level of crazy hatred. Like that was really what happened with Obama at the end of that, which is like, of course, like when Hillary was running, it was like, really, did she have that much of a chance other than the popular vote? It's hard to tell, because typically you do see the sway like that. Like, with Bush, it was the exact same thing. I was like, Bush, when it happened, actually, when Trump won, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be a Bush situation, like with Al Gore Bush thing, and it was like, okay, well, like that's kind of obvious to me, because like that's our political system. Like, it pretty much always shifts like that. And then Biden was not too much of a surprise to me, although I was a little bit surprised. I thought that he was actually going to lose. But that was more of a misjudgment on my part about the concept that the some of the states would flip. And that made sense to a certain degree, because that did happen in the 70s. So, and especially happened after Nixon. So it was like, oh, well, fuck. They like voted in the most crazy, like straight, like liberal person ever. Straight liberal. I mean, like, not, you were talking someone who's liberal, like no bending of the rules, no everything is going to be economy, and everything is going to be like pushing the US into becoming a modern country and doing it. And he was really, I mean, Jimmy Carter really did actually. Jimmy Carter, it's the thing about it is this, like, Jimmy Carter actually really was pretty instrumental for modernizing a lot of the United States infrastructure for computerization, where he kind of laid some of the groundwork in his administration, laid some of the groundwork for a lot of that stuff, although some of it was already there, especially in the 60s and 70s. They'd been developing a lot of intranet stuff all throughout the United States, but I think a lot of the computing technology just kind of got super advanced in the early 80s. And so like that presidency, and then going into the Reagan administration, was like pushed all the tech super forward, and you end up having all of these super technological breakthroughs in like transfers, like, right, like like trains getting better systems, and like GPS improvements and things like that. But then the major thing was like into the 80s, it helped develop the all of the satellite systems that were there to basically protect us in case we had a nuclear war with Russia. So with the USSR, sorry. And then like essentially, I'm just so far off track of everything right now, but like what what I'm trying to say about that is that, like, with the politics things, it's like we keep swaying, and it's a pretty constant, like, typical pattern of like sway this way, sway that way, sway this way, sway that way, depending on how good things happen in the state. You can tell right now that, like, for example, I live in California, so like you could tell right now that Newsom and like people like London Breed, for example, mayor of San Francisco, are like backtracking to hell and back right now. They are trying desperately to improve their image because they fucked up so bad with the homeless population in California. They fucked up so bad. They literally got to the point now that they're like, shit, what do we do? Well, I guess we just have, because people are so pissed off about this, and they have so many, there's so much like issues with theft and like entire cities being like not capable of like policing essentially. Or it's not even just policing, it's just like keeping safe streets and like people like not in harm. And like even worse, like let's be real about this. You want to know the real reason why they're cleaning people off the streets? You want to know the real reason why they're cleaning people off the streets? Because the homeless people keep getting hit by cars and dying. They keep getting hit by cars and they keep getting hit by people, and people keep going to jail because of it. And they're basically like, okay, wait, like this is like, we can't have this many people on the street. This is gonna, like, people, is this unsafe? It's like, yeah, it's been unsafe. Like, the only reason why we were able to get it to this point is because we had a global pandemic where people weren't driving around. And now that people are driving around, they're hitting people and going to jail for it. Like, look into statistics about this. You'll find out. You'll see pretty soon that like this is for sure like going to be a thing where it's like, okay, well, how do you, like, now you have people that are lobbying against this because they're like, yeah, this shouldn't happen at all. Like, this shouldn't happen at all. And then it's like, okay, well, now I've got actual people underneath me who are like pushing me and like putting fire underneath my feet, and I have to deal with this issue. And that's fucking crazy to me. And there's more stuff to that, obviously, because like of course with homelessness, it's not a one-sided issue. Like, homeless people are just people that believe that they have a home. That's a fact. Like, homeless people don't believe that they're homeless. They find a place to stay and they live there and they believe that that's their home. Oh, you'll experience, every single human being experiences this. If you have spent any amount of time somewhere, living somewhere for more than 4 weeks, maybe less than that, maybe 2 weeks, like about 16 days, 17 days, you'll start to feel like that's your home. You'll start to be able to just relax, and you won't have any problems feeling like you're not where you should be. And this can happen anywhere. Like, you could be on a rooftop of a building hiding away, and like and you'll feel that feeling. You'll get it, and you'll think this is fine. This is okay. It's probably not okay. You probably are unsafe and you're not in a good situation. You're getting kicked out of places and stuff like that. But they'll keep doing that. And they'll keep going from place to place to place to place because they don't have any other reason not to. There's no reason to not be homeless if you are getting all the benefits of it, and you found a lifestyle choice. That's the other thing, is it's a lifestyle choice. It's not like you're hard on your luck all that much. I mean, you can be, and it starts out that way usually. It doesn't start out as a lifestyle choice, but if it stays that way, it is. It's not like you have a hard time really pulling yourself out if you have friends and family that have money that like can give you a place to stay, right? Like, most people don't have that problem. It's when you don't have family, you don't have friends, you don't have any of these things, and then you end up on the streets because of the fact that you are, mentally ill, or you have all these other issues. And all of those things are things that the society is supposed to like give backups for. Like, okay, you could create like safe places for people to stay so that they don't have issues, especially if they do have mental health problems. They'd be able to stay there for a little bit, or at least stay there and work, which is the way that it used to be for centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries. If you were a homeless vagabond and you were just roaming the streets, if you went to a commune or a place, something like that, you could stay there, work, and get fed, and you'd be happy, and then you could do whatever you needed to do to get your feet off the ground, and then go and do your own thing. Those sorts of things should be out there. Those sorts of societal changes should be made, I believe. And I think that the big issue with homelessness right now, beyond drugs, I mean, obviously the drugs are the big one, which is like the hard part, is like, that's just one section of it, right? The big issue is, of course, the mental side of it, is the belief that like you can't get out of this, or that this is your world now. That's the big part, where it's like, okay, well, I mean, the only way that you can get out of that is by looking at it like, I'm in the world. Everybody is. And I'm here. This is where I'm at. And I have to get to where I'm at least mentally capable of being able to do basic things for myself at the very least, and other people possibly as time goes on, but at least for yourself. I think I know people that work with the homeless, and I know people that are much more. I'm sympathetic to a degree. I believe that everybody should be sympathetic by case access, meaning you should talk to homeless people. Like if someone's homeless and they're asking for money, you should talk to them. You should, hey man, what's up? Like, what's up? What's your story? Like, what's up? Like, where are you from? What are you like? What are you out here for? Like, and if they're like, I don't want to talk to you and like fuck you, blah blah blah, then you go, all right, fine, and you walk away. Because like that we're a society and we should be able to talk to each other. And if you don't want to be part of society, then maybe you shouldn't be here. Maybe you should go somewhere else. Maybe you should go in the mountains somewhere. Maybe you should go to some desert island. Maybe you should learn how to fish and hunt for yourself and do stuff on your own. Maybe you should do that. But, you know, this is where we're at. So, all right, whatever. But if you talk to that person and they turn out to be a good person, then it's, you know, hey man, like maybe like I'll buy you a drink, or like we can, you know, work on something, look into something, you know. I can help you out, whatever, you know. That's the way to go with it. And I'm realizing that like you have to have that mentality, because I've been stopped by like kids that are just like college kids that are like, I'm homeless. It's like, you're not homeless. Like, you got kicked out of your house. That's not homeless. That's in between homes. So that's not homeless. I mean, like, and you see real homeless people like that are like shattered in shatters and and rags. Different story. But it's also like you see people like that are living in nice ass trailers, not paying rent, and they probably have like $200 million. They've won all the Mr. Beast money. I'm homeless. No, really, there's a lot of money out there, and like the other thing is like those guys, like, I mean, there's a lot of money because there's a lot of drugs. Where there's drugs, there's money. Think about it. Like, where there's drugs, there's money. They're not just doing them; they're making the money. So that money has to come from somewhere, and like they do make money, and like that's crazy to me. Oh, the other crazy thing is the fact that like they don't have a legal address, and we're going closer and closer into like the Armageddon of all box stores. And I talked about that in my last stream, where it's like the end of all of this is the box store thing. Because like when box stores go away, like you can't buy stuff at the 7-Elevens don't exist, and you have to order everything on Amazon to your house, there won't be homeless people. There won't be. Like they couldn't exist. Like they literally wouldn't be able to eat. They'd be like, they'd have to like find some sort of way to like fake people's addresses to get food delivered to the address of the, or they could like order to an address that's outside, but like I'm not saying that that's ever going to happen. Of course, like convenience stores and grocery stores and things like that will still be available, but like if the retail theft gets bad enough, for sure 1000% we're going to go to app-based purchasing, meaning everything has to be bought on an app, and if you take something out and you don't have it on the app, then they're going to take a picture of you, and then next time you come in, they're going to call the cops and you're arrested. Like, that's going to happen. Like, that's our future. Like, that's what will be here. I've talked about that too. Like, your phone listens into every single conversation, listens into every song that you listen to, and make suggestions based on that. Just think about this for a second. You don't have any control over that. This is the world that we live in. Like you don't have any. We're in full surveillance, but it's not full surveillance in the sense that there's somebody actually watching you. There are just all these things set up to try to keep your mind occupied, instead of thinking about the big topics and thinking about stuff or like doing things in your actual life. Like all that stuff, if you go pop open Instagram and you scroll for a little bit, you see a bunch of the same shit over and over again, right? Like you always get suggested the same crap. And that's across the board for everybody. Everybody gets suggested the same stuff, but that's because it's stuff that's suggested specifically for you based on the things that you have been listening in on and talking about. And it's also based on like what you've been clicking on, obviously, but that depends on how much you actually do that. If you don't do too much of that, if you don't go on for a while and you open it up, you'll still get suggestions that are like specifically for you. Or if you go on YouTube, like if you go on YouTube, like listening to a song from the radio, like on radio, and like not knowing what the song is, and then like literally going on YouTube and seeing the artist for that song in a suggested video that came out like that day or like a couple days before. Yep, we're there. We're at that point. Like we are at the point now where they're just going to be like, oh, we've read your mind. Here. No, really, this is how it is. Oh my God. And it can get better and it can get worse. It can get better because, hey, I mean, like everybody's been trying to do the Iron Man, right? Like computer, Tony Stark, you know, put shing shing shing. This means nothing, by the way. Nobody works like that. Nobody's like opening up a bunch of tabs all at once and going. No one's doing that. People are doing just like, they're basically just putting stuff up and then they're doing whatever they're doing. So I just don't see a use to a lot of it, but like I do see a use to the concept of like speeding up service. Like if something breaks and your phone listens in on it and then is like giving you suggestions on how to improve things, then that would be the best thing ever. Like if you're in your car and your car breaks down and it's just like, I heard that your car broke down. Do this. Let's do this. And then like just calls AAA for you, and then you're just like, oh, I'm on call with AAA. Cool. Like if there was some sort of way of getting it integrated to where you figured out the best possible way to make it work for life, I'm all for it. But right now it's just a bunch of distractions. Like that's all the reason why I'm streaming, because I don't want to watch YouTube videos and I don't want to like spend a bunch of time doing other shit. Like I just want to like take time to like put thoughts down. And I'll be doing this more frequently. I think I'm running out of time, so I'll be at like a couple more minutes. But I'll be doing this more frequently. I have lots of ideas that I want to put down. I have a lot of things. I will definitely get canceled at some point. We know that, but like, who cares? Doesn't matter. I can't get canceled. I don't have fans. You can't get canceled if you don't have fans. It's not a thing. Like you're just a man in the world. That's a fact. You can't get canceled if you're just a man in the world. What's the point? We might do music stream later too. It's getting kind of hot in here now, so I'm going to turn fans on and rehydrate myself, and I don't know, we'll take it from there. I will probably do more drums soon. I was waiting for forever for a 48V converter to come because my 48V in the Tascam, it went totally noisy and I don't know what happened. It's just fucked up. So bought a 48V converter. I got that, and then I'm supposed to do setups for stuff pretty soon. For like, I just want to do full looping setup with the drum set and everything. And we would do maybe like a couple recording sessions for full blown like things, you know. But it's going to still take some time, and I've got like very limited resources of time right now because of work and things. I can't even get in. There's probably some weird work drama I could talk about, but I don't really need to get into that because it's pointless. And the rest of it is like, I just want to talk about stupid topics like this stuff. And maybe even get into more specifics about things. I mean, we didn't even talk about like new releases or anything. I didn't talk about the Gordy Grep, I don't know how to pronounce that guy's name, track. This fucking Steely Dan ripoff music. Which is fine. I mean, I didn't think it was too bad. And then somebody sent in the new Chat Pile track, and I was like, nah. So we're good on pretty much everything right here. And yeah, it's been almost, I think we got one more minute until 2 hours of streaming. And yeah, I think that we're probably done here. I'll just go ahead and fade it out.